Recording 2.6.
Do people you know have problems sleeping at night? Or maybe you just can't get to sleep yourself. For many people, insomnia is a way of life, and not being able to get to sleep isn't just annoying, it can also be very dangerous.
Yes, and with us today is sleep scientist Dr. Iris Saunders.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Saunders, how much of a problem is this, do you think?
Well, we know that tiredness can cause accidents. More than 50% of road accidents in the USA are because of people driving when they're tired.
That's amazing.
Indeed. And when you think that 30% of people in the UK have problems getting to sleep or staying asleep, and 10% of those suffer from serious insomnia, that's a lot of accidents waiting to happen.
So how much sleep are people getting these days?
Well, 100 years ago, before electricity, people went to sleep when it got dark and woke up when it got light. But now, in our 24-hour society, we sleep about 1.5 hours less than we did a century ago.
Well, we have 2 teenage kids, and no one can say they're sleeping less.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Scientists now think that teenagers really do need more sleep than adults. It's because they're still growing. Of course, they don't need as much as babies and small children. They need the most sleep. It's actually older people who generally need the least amount of sleep.
So why do we need sleep?
We don't actually know. Scientists used to think that sleep was the only time you had complete rest. But in fact, we use about the same amount of energy when we're asleep as when we're sitting on the sofa resting.
Really, that's surprising.
Yes, and our brains are very active for some of the time we're asleep. Apparently, that's when our brains organize information they've collected during the day.
What about cultures where they have naps in the day? You know, siestas.
They were unpopular for a while, but now they're coming back. In Spain, for example, they now have siesta salons. Because people don't have time to go home, they go to these places for a quick nap, then go back to work.
Really? What a good idea.
Yes, apparently a 30-minute nap in the day can improve our performance at work for 3 to 4 hours.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. Thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Track 14.
Do. D. You. Y. At. Ut. For. F. Of. And. N. To. T. Can.
Track 13.
How many people do you know who have trouble sleeping at night? For many of us, insomnia is part of life, and not being able to get to sleep isn't just annoying, it can also be very dangerous.
Yes, and with us today is sleep scientist Dr. Angela Moore. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Dr. Moore, how much of a problem is this, do you think?
Well, we know tiredness can cause accidents. More than 50% of road accidents in the USA are because of people driving when they're tired.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is, isn't it? And when you think 30% of people in the UK can have problems getting to sleep or staying asleep and 10% have serious insomnia, that's a lot of accidents waiting to happen.
So, how much sleep do you think people are getting these days?
Well, 100 years ago, before electricity, people went to sleep when it got dark and woke up when it got light. But now in our 24-hour society, we sleep about an hour and a half less than we did a century ago.
Well, I've got 2 teenagers and no one can say they're sleeping less.
I'm sure a lot of parents would say that. Actually, scientists now believe teenagers need about an hour more sleep than adults.
Really?
Yes, it's because their bodies are still growing. Of course, teenagers don't need as much sleep as babies and small children. They need the most sleep. It's actually older people who generally need the least amount of sleep.
That's very interesting.
Yes, and another interesting thing about teenagers is their body clock is different. So they naturally want to go to bed and wake up about 2 hours later than adults.
So that's why our children aren't very bright in the morning.
And because they have to get up early for school, this means they can feel exhausted when they get there. Recently, a school in the north of England decided to start lessons at 10 rather than 9. With a later starting time, fewer students missed school, and the exam results in English and maths were much better than the previous year.
So, do you think all schools should start later?
Well, that's certainly what a lot of sleep experts think nowadays.
So, why do we need sleep?
We don't really know. Scientists used to think sleep was the only time you had complete rest, but in fact we use about the same amount of energy when we're asleep as when we're sitting on the sofa relaxing.
Really? That's very surprising.
Yes, and our brains are very active for some of the time we're asleep. Apparently that's when our brains can organise information they've collected during the day.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. Thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Track 15. Conversation 1.
Here you are, Lisa. 1 sugar. Thanks, Rebecca. Where's Harry?
Oh, he's having his afternoon nap.
Right. You look a bit stressed. Is everything okay?
Well, Charlie and I are having a difficult time at the moment.
Oh, dear. What's the matter?
Harry isn't sleeping very well. He wakes up 4 or 5 times every night, which means Charlie and I wake up too, of course. The trouble is, Charlie finds it difficult to get back to sleep, so he's always absolutely shattered the next day.
I can see why you're upset. That must be really difficult.
Yes, it is. And when Charlie gets home from work, he's really exhausted and fed up. So we're arguing a lot more than we usually do.
Oh, dear, what a shame.
What should I do, Lisa?
Well, have you tried talking to him about it?
Yes, but we just end up having another argument. Then he tells me I'm spending too much money and starts getting really angry at me.
Oh, how awful.
But I only buy things we need for the house and for the baby, of course.
Perhaps you ought to spend more time together. You know, just the two of you. I think you need at least one evening off a week.
Yes, you could be right. I'll talk to Charlie when he gets home.
I'd be happy to babysit for you if you like.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Lisa. Thanks a lot. Uh-oh. Sounds like someone's woken up. Back in a minute.
Conversation 2.
Charlie, have you got the file for the Bradley account?
Yeah, here it is.
Thanks. Are you okay? You look exhausted.
Yeah, I'm fine.